things just got a lot worse, and we have over 20 million people right now under a state of emergency. The governor has just declared a state of emergency for over 20 million people, and things just got a lot worse. Okay, we are dealing with two major situations right now for 20 million people, and we also have, at the same time, fuel is being contaminated. So these people are trying to get out, they're trying to evacuate, and right now their fuel has been contaminated, and this is happening to dozens of gas stations right now in this hit zone, and they are not able to get gas at dozens of different gas stations right now because it's been contaminated. And they're saying, oh, it's an error, sorry about that. Right when people are trying to evacuate, they're trying to fill up their tanks, and they are trying to get gas for their generators. Okay, you need to have your gas tanks filled up, you need to have your generators ready to go, the oil changed on it, you need to have them filled up and ready to go, because the governor is even saying that the power is going to go out for most of the state as well. For 20 million people, he's saying the power is going to go out for most people. All right, so this is going to be bad. This is going to be a big one. We have airports shutting down as well. International airports are shutting down, and they are not allowing any flights to go out or go in, so people aren't able to fly out as well. This is happening. Airports are shutting down tonight. Okay, tonight they're shutting down. So if you are in this area, you need to be getting out. You need to be evacuating. You need to be getting prepared. You need to be getting water. You need to be getting food. You need to be getting stocked up. You need to have your generator ready to go. I live off grid in my RV, okay, and I live off of a generator and water tanks with my family. And generators are critical. You need to have one. The governor is saying the power is going to go out for potentially 20 million people. So there is a ton of news right now. We have two hurricanes right outside of Florida right now, and one of them is going to get a lot more powerful. Okay, we have the governor warning the power could go out for the whole state of Florida, 20 million people. He's giving this warning for. Okay, we also have fuel being contaminated. Okay, fuel is being contaminated right when people are trying to fill up these ships from the port of Tampa. Okay, they're being contaminated right now, their fuel, and they are having to shut down dozens of gas stations. This is a story they're saying right now when people are trying to fill up their generators and fill up their cars. All right, so you need to be getting prepared, and they are also shutting down the airports so you cannot fly out. All right, so you need to be getting stocked up. We have a major Cat 5 hurricane on the east of Florida right now, Hurricane Franklin. And then we also have another one that's going to potentially be a Cat 4 that's developing right now on the other side, on the west side of Florida, going up through the Gulf of Mexico. And this is Hurricane Idalia. All right, so these two hurricanes are potentially going to cause major issues for Florida and for the East Coast of the U.S. And Hurricane Idalia is going right up into Tampa Bay. They have declared a state of emergency in Florida, and evacuations are going on in Florida. So we're going to cover all this news. Big stuff is going on. You need to be getting prepared, especially if you are in Florida, and you need to be getting stocked up. Let's dive into this news of this fuel being contaminated first, and then we will get into this news of the two. We have a Cat 4 and a Cat 5 right off the coast of Florida right now. This is the situation, and they are saying that this Cat 4 that it's going to be could potentially even be a 5 because it could stall off the coast. Okay, we're going to cover all this stuff. This could be devastating for Florida, and when people are trying to evacuate, the fuel is being contaminated. So you can see here, this is coming out of the Tampa Bay Times. Quote, widespread fuel contamination reported at some Florida gas stations as Hurricane Idalia looms. Okay, they are saying that Florida officials are warning of a, quote, potentially widespread fuel contamination that may have resulted in people getting fuel from some Florida gas stations that could harm or disable their engines. So they are saying that this contaminated fuel could potentially make your engine go out on the highways. And even the governor is saying this right now. And he's also saying the power could go out for the whole state. All right. But you can see here, it could harm or disable their engines, just as Tropical Storm Idalia may put residents on the road or in search of gas to power their generators. So what are the odds? It's just a major coincidence that this happens here. It says the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services issued an alert Sunday afternoon stating that gas that was supplied out to Port of Tampa Bay by Citgo had become contaminated because of, quote, human error. All right, this is happening right now. They just put out this emergency alert saying that the gas is contaminated coming out of the Port of Tampa, and all of these gas stations around Tampa, Citgo gas stations, are closing down. Okay, and they're having to drain their tanks and get in new gas, all this stuff, and it's being delayed, and they're shutting down all the airports and shutting down the ports because of this hurricane coming in. So this is a major situation. We could see gas shortages throughout Tampa Bay, and that's where this storm is heading. That's where I have family. Okay, I have a lot of family that lives down in the area, the Tampa Bay area of Florida, and they are right in the direct path of this. Okay, so pray for everyone down there. This could be really bad. They're saying it could be a category 4. That's what they're predicting. And potentially even a category 5. There are remnants of Hurricane Michael that hit a few years ago in 2018. There are remnants of that. And it's kind of looking very similar to that. And it could stall in the Gulf of Mexico and become a way bigger storm. All right, so you could see here people who receive fuel from more than 24 gas stations across Florida's Gulf Coast, including several in the immediate Tampa area, could have contaminated fuel if it was purchased after 10 a.m. Saturday, according to the agency. It says Citgo gas stations as far south as Fort Myers and as far north as Brooksville were believed to have received the contaminated fuel. They also supply gas to BJ's, 7-Eleven, and some unbranded stations. All right. And they're saying if you put this gas in your tanks that you could stall out on the road. So what is happening here? What is happening? We saw what happened in Maui, how people were trapped and you had to disobey the official orders and jump into the water to save your life, to save your own life, save your family's lives. All right. That's what people had to do. And now when people are trying to leave and evacuate, the airport shut down. All right, we're going to get to that in just a second too. And you can't even leave. Okay, so, and then the gas is being contaminated as well. And it's the Tampa International Airport that is shut down. And now all the Tampa gas stations are being contaminated, the fuel there. So what's going on? They're saying it's a human error. Who did this? Who did this? And how are dozens of gas stations being affected? This is coming out of the Tampa Bay Times as well. Tampa International Airport closing Tuesday ahead of Idalia. It says no commercial flights will take off after midnight, the airport announced. Tampa International Airport is shutting down Tuesday ahead of Tropical Storm Idalia, which is forecast to become a, quote, major hurricane before it's hitting Florida's Gulf Coast. All right, so it's going to hit right up in there, and it's going to surge all that water right up into Tampa Bay potentially, and we could see major flooding. This area is known to have major flooding, and we could see major storm surges as well. And I know how it is. I used to live not far from the water, maybe 100 feet, 200 feet, and there were some of these storms where I was digging trenches around my house to channel the water away, and ditches to channel it away and keep the water around my house from accumulating. Okay, and I was digging, and the sand that I was digging from the ditches, I was throwing it onto my house to kind of act as sandbags to keep the water away as well. This is what you have to do in some of these situations, and your home could be destroyed too. If you were in a mobile home, if you're in an RV, you need to get out of there. If you're in a mobile home, you need to evacuate. Mobile home park, you need to evacuate in these certain regions that they're telling. And it's from Tampa Bay North. Okay, Tampa Bay North, right in the bend of Florida, is where it's going to hit and be the worst. And if you're in a coastal area of that region, you need to get out and you need to evacuate, all right, ASAP. They're predicting it to even potentially be a Category 4. You can see here, live forecasters predict Tropical Storm Idalia will turn into a dangerous Category 4 hurricane as it churns towards Florida's Gulf Coast. All right, this could be absolutely devastating for Florida. And they are also having emergency services organized in Georgia as well, because it's going to pass through into southern Georgia, and it's going to continue to be a major hurricane as it passes through all the way to the other side, to the Atlantic coast. Okay, that's what they are predicting. So southern Georgia is also going to get hit as well, and they are declaring emergencies there in the southern counties of Georgia, and you need to be prepared there as well. You can also see here, Governor DeSantis warns that all Floridians will, quote, lose power. It says Governor Ron DeSantis warned the people of Florida that if they're in the path of Storm Idalia, they will lose power. It says, quote, we've got a lot of people staged that are going to do something about it to try to restore, but there's no way you're going to get through this storm without losing power. So just make those preparations, he said. He said there's, quote, no way you're going to get through this storm without losing power. That's what the governor of Florida is saying. 20 million people in Florida. And we could see a lot of these outer bands even turn into supercells, and we could have lots of tornadoes. Okay, so you might think you're safe if you're just not in the eye, you're not near Tampa, you're not near the bend of Florida, but that's where it's going to be the worst. That's where the storm surge is going to be. But the winds could knock out power for most of the states. Okay, a lot of these substations and transfer stations could be wiped out, and it could take a while for them to get the power back on. All right, and he's saying you're not going to get through it. He said there's no way you could get through this. So this is why you need to have a generator, and that's why it's so nefarious that they were saying that this gas is being contaminated. All right, because if most generators are gas generators, and if you are going to get one, all right, what I have personally is a Champion generator. It's an open frame inverter Champion generator. Okay, and that's what I have, and I have had that thing for the past 3 years, and I've been living on it off grid in my RV on and off for the past 3 years, and it has thousands of hours on it, and it's still going. So that's just what I recommend. Personally, I always have people asking me, what kind of generator do I use? That's what I use. Personally, I have it all down below if you guys want to check it out. But that's what you need to get. That's what you need to have to keep your family alive, because we could have these major storms, and I've lived in Florida most of my life, okay? And I've been through a lot of these hurricanes, and we could have major storms, and then the next week it's 100 degrees and your power's out and you're desperate. And we've been in situations where we're off the generator and a wall unit. Okay, we have an extension cord going to the generator from the wall unit because it's so hot, and we only have one room blocked off in the house that's nice and cool, and you just go in there to cool down. All right, I've been in situations like that in Florida where the power's out. So have a wall unit, have all these things as backup, because the water could not work as well. All right, one thing I always did in Florida was anytime I had an empty water jug, empty water gallon jugs or empty water bottles, I would fill them up. Okay, and I would have a water closet. I live in my RV now, so I can't really have as much water. I have a big water tank in the back, but I would fill it up and have a water closet there, because you can't flush your toilet even. A lot of times when the power's out, you can't even flush your toilet in Florida, and it could get nasty quick if you can't flush your toilet. You can't get water. There's no water pressure because the pumps are out from the electricity. All right, so if you are in Florida, you need to be getting prepared. If you are in this area, you need to evacuate. You can also expect tons of stores to start closing down as well. When the airport closes, all right, we're going to see shipments stop. We're going to see stores close down as well. They're going to follow suit. And the airport closes tonight at midnight. You cannot get out of Tampa International Airport. It is shut down. All right, so this is serious. We could see stores being shut down. We could see Publix being shut down. All right, Publix is already scaling back a lot of their operations, I was reading, and they are pulling back and allowing a lot of their employees to take off and go get prepared. All right, so we could see Publix close down very soon in the next day or two. And if you've been through these hurricanes, it's almost like apocalyptic, or it's almost like Christmas or something for a few days where everything's just closed down, right? When there's a bad hurricane, there's no power, everything's just closed down because none of the businesses can operate. None of the fast foods open. None of the grocery stores are open. And guess what? Your card isn't going to work. You need to have cash. Maybe some stores will be operating, some smaller stores, with cash. But if they don't have power, they can't operate. All right. And it's very eerie. It's a very eerie feeling when you're driving around your local town and everything's closed. It's very strange. It's like on Christmas where everything's closed. But when that goes on for days, you start getting a little worried, start getting a little stressed, and the power could be out for a while. We have the governor warning that no one is going to get through this and be safe from this. So you need to be getting prepared. You need to be going and getting stocked up right now. If you are in Florida, you need to be going to the store and getting stocked up. And hopefully you already are stocked up and you don't even have to go. But if you are low on preps, if you don't have water, get water bottles, all this stuff, because the water could not work and there could be shortages. And now the gas is being affected as well. And if the port of Tampa is completely flooded out and destroyed, and they're worried that this could hit Tampa straight on. Okay, this could hit Tampa straight on. And a lot of parts of Florida, the homes are still destroyed. Okay, they're still destroyed from previous hurricanes. But if it hits the port of Tampa straight on, this could cause major supply chain issues for Florida. This could cause major gas supply issues because Florida gets a lot of gas from the port of Tampa. Most of its fuel and most of its supply chain operates on the ports. Okay, it's a giant peninsula. And if the port of Tampa is taken out, that could cause major issues to the supply chain around Tampa and in Hillsborough, Pinellas, all these different counties, Pasco, all these different counties in Florida could be hit hard with major shortages for maybe weeks. Okay, depending on how bad the infrastructure is destroyed in the port of Tampa. And a lot of these roads, okay, if you know US 19, if you've lived in this area of Florida, US 19 is a disaster. And there are so many areas of it where it completely floods out. There are so many low areas of it where it floods for days. I remember these major hurricanes where you couldn't even travel on US 19, one of the major highways in this part of Florida. Okay, on the west coast of Florida, it's one of the major highways, US 19. All right, it's pretty much the major highway. And you couldn't even travel in a lot of parts of it. Like once you started getting into Pasco, there were all these flood zones and flood areas where you were diverted and you had to go all the way around for miles and miles just to get back onto US 19 because it was completely flooded out. Okay, so that could happen to all these low areas, these underpasses. All this stuff could get flooded and potentially be flooded for weeks. All right, there was this one area I remember, it was like right outside of Wawa, and it would flood so bad and it would be like that for weeks. Okay, it would take weeks for the water to just completely clear out, right? Because the sewers were flooded, everywhere was just flooded, and there was nowhere for the water to go, and there was nowhere to even put it either. All right, so that could happen as well. That could prevent fuel tankers from getting in there. That could prevent supply chains from operating and going on these major highways. All right, this flooding, that's a major issue in Florida. And also with the insurance, okay? People's homes are being destroyed, and then they can't even get enough insurance money, and a lot of times they aren't even allowed to rebuild their homes in these areas. All right, so they put so many restrictions and so much, they jack up the insurance prices so much in these areas that nobody can afford it. You're paying $1,000 a month in insurance, $2,000 a month in insurance, and your mortgage is $1,500, $2,000 a month. It's like you're doubling your mortgage just to have insurance. In some places, it's like $10,000 a month to have insurance there. All right, some places of Florida, some very like high-end neighborhoods, it's like $10,000 a month. They just will not insure it, and if your home gets destroyed, you're just out of luck. You're out of luck on the loan, everything, and it kind of ruins your life. And then these big corporations, BlackRock, all these different groups, they move in and they swoop up these properties for super cheap. Okay, that's what they do. And we saw what happened in Hawaii, and this is a very similar situation. This is prime beachfront property. Okay, Clearwater, Florida is prime beachfront property. All these areas, Pinellas, Florida, all the way up the coast, the Gulf Coast, is prime property. And it would make sense that, hey, these areas get destroyed, and then they come in and they take over and they build these new smart grids and these new smart communities that they want to have, or whatever project they want to build there, some casino, some hotel, some whatever they want to build there. This happens time after time. We keep seeing this, and we can't allow this to happen. So please hit it up for me down there to get this video out to more people. People need to know. People need to be prepared. Pasco County under emergency evacuations. If you are there, you need to get out. The governor is saying, get out now. Okay, this is so bad that Biden has even declared a federal emergency. I forgot to mention that earlier. FEMA is involved. All right, Biden has declared a federal emergency for this, and FEMA has opened up billions of dollars. So this is so bad that they are getting FEMA involved, and they are getting their people out there for a federal emergency. All right, so you need to be prepared. We could see a major grid collapse in this area, and there's already problems with these transformers. Okay, they need a very special conductive metal. Okay, it takes a very highly conductive metal, and there's only one factory in the whole US that makes this special metal for the transformers. Okay, so if we see, hundreds of transformers wiped out at once, this could be a problem with our supply chain as well, to actually get these transformers to Florida. Okay, and then with the ports potentially shutting down, we could see problems getting them from overseas. Okay, if they need to bring them overseas, that could be an issue as well. And a lot of these things are already on back order for months. Okay, I made a whole report about this probably 6 months ago, how they're having major issues getting transformers for the electric grid, and especially after these major disasters. And they're saying the past few years they have used up a lot of these transformers. Okay, they've used up their reserve. They had a reserve, but the past few years there's been so many major disasters and fires and all this stuff that are very suspicious. By the way, very suspicious that there's a category 4 and a category 5 Franklin off the coast of Florida right now as well. 2 hurricanes. They're saying category 5 Franklin over there, or it's going to be a category 5. Okay, it's not yet, but it's going to be a category 5. I believe it's a category 3, but it's going to strengthen. They are saying that it is going to go up the East Coast. All right, so it's not going to go straight towards Florida, but it's going to get a lot of outer bands. So at the same time, it's going right through Adalia, is going right through Florida. We're going to get outer bands from Franklin here. So Florida is going to get smacked. Georgia is going to get smacked. Florida also just deployed 1,100 National Guardsmen to deal with this emergency. You can see here, DeSantis urged Floridians Sunday to, quote, just heed the warnings of your local officials ahead of Adalia's arrival. To prepare for the storm, 1,100 National Guardsmen have been mobilized with high water vehicles and aircraft for rescue and recovery efforts. He said 300 troops were also ready to be deployed on Florida's highways. Quote, if you are in the path of the storm, you should expect power outages, so please prepare for that. A state of emergency has been declared in Hillsborough and Citrus counties. They've declared them in all the counties at the state level, but the individual counties are also declaring them as well, and they're issuing emergency evacuations in all these coastal western Florida counties. All right, so they're saying 300 National Guardsmen could also be on Florida's highways, okay? Because a couple years ago, there were people stranded all over the highways in Florida. They waited till the last second, and then they were about to get smacked with a category 4 or 5. I don't remember which one it was. This was a few years ago. This might have been Michael, actually, in 2018. I think this was Michael. People didn't believe it was going to be this bad, and they left at the last minute. All the gas stations were closed. All the power was out. They left at the last minute. They didn't have enough gas in their gas tanks. They didn't have any extra gas tanks. Like I keep telling you guys, have gas tanks for your generator, have them for your car, and have them filled up. Have water tanks as well, just in case the power goes out and you need to use that stuff for a week or two until you get your power back on. But there were hundreds of people stranded on the roads trying to go north and get out of Florida. All right, I'm pretty sure this was 2018, and it was so sad. And a ton of people did not make it. They got stuck in their cars and they were stranded there, and they just had to ride out the hurricane, and they didn't make it in their car. All right, so this is bad because they were flooded out. They were in a flood zone. If you're not in a flood zone, you can maybe ride out a hurricane in your car. Okay, it depends how bad. It depends where you are and how bad the wind is. But a lot of people, their cars stalled out and they were in a flood zone, and they had nowhere to go. Okay, nowhere to go. They were trapped from these flood surges. All right, so this is something you need to get prepared now. You need to get your gas tanks filled up now. This is why I'm always saying this. You need to have your red gas tanks filled up, your water tanks, your propane tanks. If you have an RV, a bug out RV, you need to have that stuff ready to go as well. Have the tanks filled up on that. That's a whatever, 40 gallons, 50 gallons, however big your tank is, 60 gallons. And then you can have your propane tanks on that as well. And you can bug out and live in that if you have to evacuate. All right. And try to go to a family member's home. If you are in a mobile home, go to someone's home that's more secure. Go to someone that's in a higher location, because that's going to be your main threat, is flooding. All right. And it could be bad. All right. We've had situations where lightning struck trees in our backyard and it fell onto our power poles. All right. This has happened to us before in Florida. So you never know. I've had a friend, his house got struck by lightning. Right? His house got struck by lightning, and part of it caught on fire in Florida, in the same area right near Tampa Bay, Florida. So this stuff could happen to anyone. And they even have scientists even came out in Physics Today, all these American Scientific, all these different journals, they have these lightning manipulation techniques. Okay, they made a whole article on it a few months ago, how they can direct. This is what the article was saying, right? They can direct lasers at certain points into the sky and redirect lightning and cause lightning to form in certain areas and cause lightning to strike specific areas and locations. And I'm not saying that's what's happening, but I'm just saying it's pretty crazy, the world we're living in, and lightning is also a major threat you need to be prepared for too. This happened 15 years ago, this stuff, the tree getting struck, and my friend's house got struck by lightning as well, and part of it caught on fire from it getting struck by lightning. All right, so this could happen to anyone. You need to be prepared, and you need to be getting out of these areas and evacuating if you were in this Big Bend of Florida, Tampa Bay, Florida, and north. All right, it's not looking good, and this could even be a Cat 5 like Michael. That's what some people are predicting. There also are these admitted geoengineering programs at state levels and federal levels that are admitted. I've made whole videos on it multiple times, showed the documents, how all these different states have their own state level geoengineering programs, and there's also federal level geoengineering programs as well. So it's just something to think about. I'm not saying that's what these are, but these things exist, and we need to think of all the possibilities. All right. And these storms could be devastating, and they knock people off their land, and a lot of times they can never return. All right. Their homes are never the same. I'm telling you, I know someone from one of these storms a few years ago, and they still have a tarp on their house, and they moved out of the state. They moved down to Florida. Okay, they lived up north, they moved down to Florida, their home got destroyed by a hurricane, and then they just moved back up north, and they've just had this home, and they've been fighting the insurance company, trying to get a claim for it. All right, so it's a disaster what's going on down there, and people deserve to know what's happening. All right, so please hit it up for me. I really appreciate that. It helps support the channel. Just hit it up down there, and it helps to get it out to more people, so more people are prepared as well. So thank you guys so much for watching and blessing me, and I hope you have big blessings for your family, and I hope you have a big old blessed day.